Sir, Sanderson's dropping 4 books next year.
Are they spaced out?
Yeah, they seem to be pretty evenly spaced out.
Good, good. The TBR can take that. We'll just slot them in for release day, and if they're pushed back a little, it doesn't really matter because there's plenty of space in between them, and
Sir,
we can just slot them in between other releases, and it should still fit.
Sir, there's something else in the scanner. More books just keep appearing.
How did they get so close?
They seem to have flown under the radar of the bigger releases, sir.
The TBR can't take all that. Are they good books?
Great books, sir.
How long till they hit?
Looks like they'll hit imminently. I just want to say it's been an honor trying to manage this TBR with you, sir.
It's been an honor working with you too, Cadet.
It's funny because it's a video about books that not enough people have read because they might have flown under your radar for the bigger releases, and that's why there's a radar. And they were trying to manage the TBR, and it's funny. It's a good 3-star video. They all know our Brandos and our Sandos and our Abercrombies and our Tolkiens, but we're really lucky right now with so many books coming out that some can just fly under the radar. So I've made a list of some books I want more people to read, so I can talk to you about them, and the writers can write more books like them. So read them for me, please. First, we have Flames of Mira. This is the reason I wanted to make this video in the first place. Criminally underread. I think it only has 100 and something reviews on 124 ratings on Goodreads. Read this book, please. It only just came out in July of this year, but it's one of my favorite reads of the year, and maybe favorite reads of all time. It's so good. Despite being 550 pages, this is a really well-paced book. At no point does it slow down, and it doesn't skim over anything either. The character work in the book is also really, really well done. I'm going to stop waving that about now. All the character relationships are multifaceted and really interesting to watch evolve over time. Which makes sense when you're flesh-bound and forced to kill people when you don't want to kill people. You're going to create some strange dynamics between the cast of characters. Even the side characters are well fleshed out with their personalities and how they interact with the rest of the characters. And this really does, yes, I'm picking it back up, have some of the most interesting dynamics between characters that I've ever read in any book. The world building, an uninhabitable icy landscape surface, a tunnel system, society clinging near to lava to keep warm, a chemical-based magic system, a mysterious ageless sovereign ruling the continent with his powerful honor guard, and ancient histories and gods hinting at deeper lore still. This truly is a layered onion of world building that is a joy to peel back at the risk of tears. That's what I wrote in my review, so I'm just going to read that. I think that sums up quite well. Highly engaging, incredible dynamics between characters, amazing world building. Read this book, please. It's really good. Next up, we have Along the Razor's Edge by Rob Hayes. Can we just take a moment to look at how beautiful this artwork is by Felix Ortiz? Stunning. Even the naked hardback too. Got the same designs for the typography. Nice. So Rob Hayes is a pillar in the self-published community, fantasy community. He has a newsletter that goes out every month, I think, talking about new releases, and also he publishes amazing books himself. So I've seen Rob's name come up a fair bit, and I was looking for an audiobook to listen to while I was working. And I know Never Die is his big read. So I thought, oh, I'll get his other series, Along the Razor's Edge, as audiobook, and then I might not need to pick up physically. See where this is going? And I loved it so much I had to buy the nice hardbacks. This book opens with our main character Eska as a young teen on the losing side of a war. She is stripped of her magic and thrown down into a prison called the Pit. This is written from the perspective of Eska in the future, looking back on the events of her time in the Pit. Eska makes storytelling promises and hints of what's to come and her regrets of what's coming up. And this adds a layer of tension and foreboding to what's coming up. This not only added to the characters and plot, but the world building, hearing of far off places that we'll eventually get to, and Eska learning more about the magic from these other societies we haven't met yet, makes the world feel really big and exciting. The promise of a grand adventure really pulled me through this book and has me clawing to pick up the next one. And I've also heard that the books just get better. I've heard book 2's... I have those in the wrong order. But I heard book 2 is even better than book 1, so I'm really excited to continue this, and I'll probably listen to the audiobook as well, because the performance by Moira is really good. December Blade time, baby! It's a modern day Lord of the Rings. It's a nice quest, chunky book, with a big cast of characters, sprawling world, different cultures to get yourself immersed in. And it's just really, really good. And you need to read it. And also the sequel's coming out in February, so if you're going to pick up, now's a really good time. A land under occupation, a legendary sword, a young man's journey to find his destiny. Aaron has lived by rules all his life. He's never questioned it. That's just the way things are. But then his father is executed for treason, and he and his best friend Cade are thrown into prison mine, doomed to work until they drop. Unless they can somehow break free. Oh, it's killing my knees. I really need to get a chair or something here. I read this and it became instantly a 5-star read, and it's one I'm going to reread in January for the sequel coming out in February. And it's 824 pages, so it's not light reading for a rereading. That just shows you how much it's really good. Next up we have Rage of Dragons, an African-inspired fantasy story following Tao, a boy who's not very smart and does lots of dumb things and gets a really tough time of it. The Ome people have been fighting an unwinnable fight for almost 200 years. Their society has been built around war and only war. The lucky ones are born gifted. 1 in every 2,000 women has the power to call down dragons. 1 in every 100 men is able to magically transform himself into a bigger, stronger, faster killing machine. Everyone else is fodder, destined to fight and die in an endless war. Young, giftless Tao knows all this, but he has a plan of escape. This is a military fantasy book, but it's less strategic, at least in the first one, it's less strategic, sit around and plan movements of an army, and more military soldiers on the ground training. There's a lot of training in this book. Tao is a fantastic character. He does sometimes get pegged by people as a one-note revenge character, but he has a lot more to him than that, and it's his persistence and pushing through that really makes him an interesting character that gets even more fleshed out in book 2, which I also recommend. And last but not least, Master of Jinn. This is a steampunk fantasy based in Cairo. I feel like that should just sell it, just that. How cool does that sound? A steampunk fantasy in Cairo. As soon as I heard that and saw that cover, I immediately went out and picked it up. Though Fatima is the youngest woman working for the Ministry of Alchemy, Enchantments and Supernatural Entities, she's certainly not a rookie, especially after preventing the destruction of the universe last summer. So when someone murders a secret brotherhood dedicated to one of the most famous men in history, Al-Jahiz, Agent Fatima is called onto the case. Al-Jahiz transformed the world 50 years ago when he opened up a veil between the magical and the mundane realms, before vanishing into the unknown. This murder claims to be Al-Jahi's return to condemn the modern age for its social oppressions. His dangerous magical abilities instigate unrest in the streets of Cairo that threaten to spill over onto the global stage. This is a fun, fast-paced murder mystery tale coated in ancient histories and lost lore. Ancient lore and lost histories. Fatima's a really well realized character. We don't get a lot of her past or how she came to be where she is, but she's still got a very strong and recognizable personality. I particularly like when Fatima teams up with CT, and their dynamic and combo later on in the story is really entertaining to read. A lot of bantering between them and entertaining scenes. It's been a wee while since I read the book, but I took a note on how much I really enjoyed the prose, and particularly the scene descriptors. It really did feel like a masterclass in building up a setting and making it come to life just in such a short time as well. It's not even an expansive paragraph after paragraph like you would get from a Robert Jordan or someone, but he just manages to bring it to life and really set the characters in the scene really quickly and really effectively. And the last thing I want to touch on, and the last book, the world building is really cool. It's really interesting. It's kind of blurring the line between an urban fantasy and high fantasy, with a rift opening up 50 years in the past and letting through these jinns and angels. It's not your typical sense of angels. And we also get a scene later on in the book where it talks about other countries having the same issue of these magical creatures passing through, but not just jinn and angels, but other types like goblins, fae, all that sort of stuff in other parts of the world. So it really opens this up to visit other places and maybe have other short little detective novels in other countries. Such an entertaining book, 5-star, one of my all-time favorites. I don't know, but it's really good. Well, thank you for watching. If you liked this video, then go out and buy all the books that I was talking about because they're spectacular. And read them and tell me how much you love them, and if you didn't love them, then don't tell me because I don't want to hear it. I'm kidding, I'm kidding. You can not like them. You'll be wrong, but you can do it. I'm sorry, Meg. I didn't mean to scare you. I know. I'm sorry.